Good morning. Such a beautiful day. And I have to admit, I am so excited to share with you what I have today. It was many years coming, as you'll learn. What I'm about to share are stories of courage. And I'm going to use myself as an example, but as a foil. Because as you're about to learn from me is that, the big moment of courage for me was to finally, belatedly come out of the closet. But in terms of my gay activism, at every step of the way, I was pushed, shoved, supported, applauded, defended. The people I'm about to share with you knew none of that. They stood up alone against all odds, and they leave me in awe. So prepare to be impressed. The most courageous and important thing an LGBTQ person can do is come out of the closet. And I'm going to rush ahead to Harvey Milk, a quote from him, and we'll come back to him later. He said, most importantly, every gay person must come out. As difficult as it is, as hard as it is, you must tell your immediate family, you must tell your relatives, you must tell your friends, if indeed they are your friends. You must tell your neighbors, you must tell the people you work with, you must tell the people in the stores you shop in, and once they realize we really are their children, and we are indeed everywhere, every myth, every lie, every innuendo will be destroyed once and for all. And once you do, you will feel so much better. Let me give you two anecdotes about that. One was from a Quaker meeting in California. I wasn't there for this, but I heard about it. They were trying to come to terms. Every Quaker meeting is all by itself. And they were debating, would they begin to marry LGBT people in their small congregation? And in Quaker meetings, the Religious Society of Friends, they have to agree by consensus. And so they spent a year studying, discussing, and at the end of the year it came down to the final meeting, and they could not reach consensus. And there was this long moment of sort of painful, sad silence. And these two women who had been coming to their meeting for the longest time stood up together and said, "We want to get married," and sat back down. And then there was another long moment of silence, and the chair just said, "Is there consensus?" There was immediate unanimity. As long as it was an issue, they couldn't agree. But once it was the two women that they knew, they said, "But of course we'll marry you." Once there's a face to it, everything changes. I'll use my mother, whom I finally came out to. I think I was 32, 33 years old. I was out to everyone else on earth and not my parents. I finally came out to her, and she just began to cry and said, "I've always pitied gay people." But I had told her in my coming out spiel about P-Flag. She went, and 3 months later, I come home from work back in California. I'm from Ohio. And there's a message on my machine. My mom, by the way, was a bridge life master, and she was at a tournament. And evidently, in the table adjacent to hers, there was a woman who was fat with short cropped hair, and someone at her table made a very disparaging remark about that effing dyke. And my mom threw her cards down on the table, and with a voice loud enough for everyone in the room, "My son is gay, and you will not make such a disparaging homophobic remark in my presence ever again. I've had enough of this." And she was on the phone saying, "And I felt great. I can't wait for my next homophobic remark." So my coming out, 3 months later, I had turned my mom into a gay activist. That is the power of coming out. There also, it's not just, you need to know that, though, that not everyone can come out. The Los Angeles Police Department estimates that 40% of LA homeless youth are LGBTQ. They're kicked out of their homes. A recent study says that it's estimated that 83% of LGBTQ people throughout the world must remain in the closet. 83%. And even long after I was out, every Thanksgiving I used to throw this big Thanksgiving dinner in my condo complex's party center for all my gay friends who had no place to go on Thanksgiving. We have much work to do. We also need to out the gay people in history, and this is a poster. It says, unfortunately, history has set the record a little too straight. I remember the day that I saw this poster for the first time, and I stopped and I was transfixed. I couldn't believe it. And my emotions, that sort of a kaleidoscope of emotions, was first just shock and awe, and then it was joy. I'm like, oh my God, all these heroes, and then it turned to anger and rage. Why had I been denied this information all my life? It would have made a huge difference. Let me just give you a few. This is from Gerald Unks, the editor of The Gay Teen, a book. And he wrote, within the typical secondary school curriculum, homosexuals do not exist. They are non-persons in the finest Stalinist sense. They have fought no battles, held no offices, explored nowhere, written no literature, built nothing, invented nothing, and solved no equations. The lesson to the heterosexual student is abundantly clear. Homosexuals do nothing of consequence. To the homosexual student, the message has even greater power. No one who has ever felt as you do has done anything worth mentioning. Let me give a few. James Baldwin, Errol Flynn, Michelangelo, Edna St. Vincent Millay, Cole Porter, Eleanor Roosevelt, Walt Whitman, Virginia Woolf, Sappho, Frida Kahlo, Audre Lorde, Da Vinci, King James I, Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Pope John the 22nd, Emily Dickinson, Gore Vidal, Andy Warhol, Freddie Mercury, Tchaikovsky, Leonard Bernstein, Socrates, Plato, Virgil, Roman Emperor Hadrian, Sir Francis Bacon, Frederick the Great, Noel Coward, and my favorite, Baron von Steuben. How many have never heard of Baron von Steuben? There's a reason for that. Baron von Steuben was a Prussian officer and soldier trainer at the time of the American Revolution. He'd been kicked out of every office throughout Europe because it had been discovered that he was gay. He couldn't find a job anywhere. Benjamin Franklin was over there. He knew a genius when he saw one. And frankly, the Americans, beggars can't be choosers. And he arranged for Baron von Steuben, promoted him, lied about his actual rank, got him over to Valley Forge, and trained our troops at Valley Forge. Wow. Prior to Valley Forge, our troops had been running away from the British. After Valley Forge, they marched out of Valley Forge, and instead of turning left away from New York to run away, they turned right. And they headed straight to the British, and they fought the British to a standstill at the Battle of Monmouth. And the British ran back to New York City and never came out again. The truth is, the man who created the American military, Baron von Steuben, was a gay man. He's now known by most people as the second most indispensable man to the American Revolution after George Washington. Who knew? Anyways, let me give you a brief history of me. I lived in the closet for many years. In my defense, I was a devout Catholic. I taught in Catholic schools in Texas. No, I wasn't going to come out. But I went to California for grad school, and on campus there was this LGBTQ meeting room called the Firehouse. It was above the old firehouse. And the entire time I was there, I tried to ignore it. But a few years later, I'm finally teaching in a public school. I'm over 30, and I said I should go. And I went over to the firehouse. I sort of walked around it 4 or 5 times to make sure no one I knew was anywhere. And then I ran up the stairs and got inside. And then I met at that next poster, Paul Clifford, who remains my dear friend together. I met him there at the firehouse, and we came out of the closet together. The important thing for you to know about him, he became the pusher and the shover in my life. And shortly after we came out of the closet, he said, come on, we're going to go to a gay pride parade. I'm like, no. And he said, we're just going to sit, come on. So he dragged me to San Francisco to go to a gay pride parade. And then the P flag contingent came by, parents, families, and friends of lesbians and gays, one of the largest and most beloved contingents. And he walks by and he jumps up and he goes, "Come on, let's go." And he ran out and like, "What are you doing?" And I got dragged into the PFLAG contingent. And I thought, okay, this is okay. Parents, families, and friends. I'm just a friend. Okay, plausible deniability. So I'm marching with PFLAG. And directly in front of us is this small, pathetic contingent of Bangle, the Bay Area network of gay and lesbian educators. Wow. And I must have gone for a mile going, crap, I know where I belong. And I'm like, and I finally went to Paul and I said, I gotta go. And I went up and joined this pathetic contingent and met next Ron Schmidt. Ron Schmidt was a teacher in Morgan Hill, and Ron Schmidt saw the suffering of his students, and one of his students committed suicide because he was gay and of all the harassment. And Ron Schmidt went to his administrators and said, "This is not right, we must do something." And they said no, and he came out to them and they just began to harass him, and the rest of his career was a nightmare. And nonetheless, he started Bangle, the Bay Area network of gay and lesbian educators. I'm going to come back to him in a minute. I went to one of the Bangle meetings. Frankly, I was kind of hoping to meet another gay educator, a cute one. And I didn't, but I met Terry Gruenwald, who was a fellow mentor teacher in my district. And she, once again, I'm being pushed and shoved everywhere. She said, I've heard that our superintendent, Guy Emanuel, next, is gay friendly. And by the way, he was the longest standing superintendent in California history. He took our district, New Haven Unified, from the worst in the state to one of the best. High standards for everybody. And we'd heard he might be gay friendly. And she said, we're both mentor teachers. We both know our students are suffering. We should do something. We need to go talk to them and train our colleagues. And I'm like, and so we went to see Guy Emanuel, and I remember walking down this long hallway, and I turned to her and go, we could just turn around and run away. We go into his office, and I say, hi, I'm Dave Ellison, I'm gay, she's Terry Gruenwald, she's lesbian, we're both mentor teachers, and we want to train everyone in this district on how to make their classrooms safe. The title of our training was The Invisible Minority. Now, I have to do a flashback. About 6-8 months before, Lambda Youth in Hayward had announced they were going to do the world's first gay prom. And this made national headlines. And of course the question is, why would they need their own prom? That led to interviews of students, one of them named Peter, who had dropped out of our high school because of all the harassment that he faced. This made the local TV stations, this made the newspaper. Now this man, Guy Emanuel, there's only one thing he hated worse than bad press. And that was the thought that any minority kid is being shortchanged. He contacted this kid and called him in for a 3-hour interview. He said, tell me everything. And shortly after that, every year at the beginning of the year, he threw a barbecue in his backyard for all the administrators of the district. He interrupted his own barbecue to explain what had happened, and he harangued them all, and he said, we are complicit in the deaths of these kids. But he didn't know what to do. And then Terry and I walked into his office and said, we want to train everyone in this district, and it was like, woo, manna from heaven. And this man went to the school board and got all the ducks in a row. He said, we're going to do this. When it was announced that we were going to do this, the Rutherford group out east, very, very powerful and conservative group, sent him a message, said, we will sue you. He sent them the name and contact information of his lawyer, and he said, bring it on. All right. He insisted we train the administrators first, which we did. Afterwards, he kicked us out. Now, I had a deep throat in the room, so I know what happened. And there was a short discussion, and then one principal finally said, oh, great. Now we're going to have openly gay teachers. What the hell do I do when a parent calls and says, get my kid out of that faggot's classroom? And he sat down. And the associate superintendent for personnel stood up and said, what do you say now when a parent calls and said, get my kid out of that N-words classroom? And sat back down. In one sentence he said, you will back those teachers, and we will back you. Anyways, so that's the amazing support we got. We did that training over a course of 3 years. Now, just before I did the training, my principal called me into her office, sat me down, and said, so Dave, you're doing this training. And I already saw you're going to get a panel of kids up there that are former students that are going to come out of the closet. So you're going to stay in the closet? And I went, oh, crap. And she said, you can't come out that day. That's their day. You can't surprise anyone with this then. Staff meeting's tomorrow. So I was shoved out of the closet by my principal. Anyways, at the end of all these trainings, the superintendent, just to make it very clear to everyone what kind of district we were, he made me teacher of the year. And the next year I was promoted to assistant principal. I made a very strong statement. We very soon became the most gay-friendly district in the entire nation. Now Terry and I were on a roll, so we went into him and said, well, you're about to retire. I mean, you're protecting us, what about your successor? And he said, you're right. The next board meeting, they revised every single non-discrimination policy in the district. So we went to see him again, and Terry said, I've been with my partner for, I don't know, 20 years. We can't get married. Why doesn't she get domestic partnership benefits? And he said, that's not right. And so he changed that overnight. That's the kind of visionary man, this one. He remains one of my heroes. Let's get back here for a moment to this hero, Ron Schmidt. After all this went on, I got into a phone call conversation with him, and I told him everything that had happened, just gushing with enthusiasm. He began to weep on the other side of the phone. I think weep for angst for all the suffering that he had endured, and joy that such a thing could happen, that such a gay teacher could be treated the way I had been. Now there's a happy ending. He continued to fight against everything in the Morgan Hill district without success. The LGBT kids would come to him after school, sometimes sobbing, and one day he said enough. He called the ACLU. The ACLU came and interviewed these kids, and what's the name of this thing? Flores versus Morgan Hill in 1998. The ACLU sued and won. And the plaintiffs won $1.1 million in damaging. And the district was compelled to do LGBTQ training throughout the district by law. And it became a landmark decision that shocked every other school in the state of California, saying, you're next. You are liable for the suffering of these kids. That's what this one courageous man did. And no one was backing him. He did it alone against all odds. All right, let's go, next one. Let's go back in history, though, very quickly, and I'm going to fly through this, so get ready. Here we go. How many have heard of Heinrich Ulrich? Yeah, one, yay. We're going back to 1862 in Germany. He was a German lawyer, jurist, journalist, writer, and proponent of living Latin. A pioneer of sexology and the modern gay rights movement. He's known as the first gay man in world history in the sense that he came out of the closet and declared himself gay publicly and then fought on behalf of LGBTQ people, although there weren't the words back then. He published 12 pamphlets arguing that same-sex attraction was natural, innate, and not a crime. There was no word for homosexual. He created a word called urning, U-R-N-I-N-G. And he said, until my dying day, I will look back with pride that I found the courage to come face to face in a battle against the specter for which time immemorial has been injecting poison into me and into men of my nature. Many have been driven to suicide because of all their happiness in life was tainted. Indeed, I am proud that I found the courage to deal the initial blow to the hydra of public contempt. Say his name, Heinrich Ulrich. He did that alone, unlike me. Next, Karoli Maria Kurtberry. He was a contemporary and ally of Ulrich. He was straight, he claimed, but his diary reveals perhaps not. He created the word homosexual, and he advocated for the legalization of homosexuality. He explained his interest in sexual minorities as his, quote, instinctive drive to take issue with every injustice. He cited his formative experience from his teenage years, the suicide of a co-worker who was being blackmailed and threatened with exposure as a homosexual. Quote, the state does not have the right to intervene in what is happening between consenting people. And he said, whether it's a choice or not, that is irrelevant. Say his name, please. Let's just do his last name, Kurtberry. Their name should be shouted. How many have heard of Oscar Wilde? Oh yeah, Irish author, poet, and playwright. Some see him as the greatest of his age. He wrote The Importance of Being Earnest. I love him for his aphorisms. There's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about. And he also said, we are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. Anyways, he was put on trial for his love affair with Lord Alfred Douglas, a 21-year-old. At the time, he was 40, so a 40-year-old man dating a 21-year-old. But he was put on trial, and during his trial, as he defended his love for this younger man, he said, the love that dare not speak its name in this country is such a great affection of an elder for a younger man as there was between David and Jonathan, such as Plato made the very basis of his philosophy, and as such you find in the sonnets of Michelangelo and Shakespeare. It is that deep spiritual affection that is as pure as it is perfect. It dictates and pervades great works of art. It is in this century misunderstood, so misunderstood that it may be described as, quote, the love that dare not speak its name. And on that account of it, I am placed where I am now. It is beautiful. It is fine. It is the noblest form of affection. There is nothing unnatural about it. It is intellectual, and it repeatedly exists between an elder and a younger man, when the elder man has intellect and the younger man has all the joy, hope, and glamour of life before him. That it should be so, the world does not understand. The world mocks at it, and sometimes one puts one in the pillory for it. He was sentenced to 2 years of hard labor in British prisons. He was stripped of his wealth and his career. He spent the final years in impoverished exile in France, where he died of meningitis in 1900. But what happened to him angered many people throughout the world and emboldened them to say, enough. Please say his name. Oscar Wilde. Next one, Magnus Hirschfeld. He was a German physician and another sexologist. In 1896, a young lieutenant whom Hirschfeld was treating for severe depression took his own life. The lieutenant addressed his suicide note to Hirschfeld, where he wrote that despite his best efforts, he could not end his desires for other men, and so had ended his life out of guilt and shame. He explained that he lacked the strength to tell his parents the truth, and spoke of his shame of that which nearly strangled my heart. The officer could not even bring himself to use the word homosexuality. Instead, he conspicuously referred to it as that in his note. The note closes with the words, the thought that you could contribute a future when the German fatherland will think of us in more just terms sweetens the hour of my death. And so the very next year, Magnus Hirschfeld founded the Scientific Humanitarian Committee, the first gay rights organization in Europe or anywhere. Its motto was, "Through science to justice." The committee had three main goals: repeal paragraph 175, which was the part of the German Constitution that criminalized homosexuality, educate the public about homosexuality, and assist gays and lesbians in their struggle for civil rights. From 1899 to 1923, the committee published a journal, the Yearbook for Intermediate Sexual Types, the first ever LGBTQ publication. He founded the World League for Sexual Reform, which at its peak had 130,000 members. He had a theory about the spectrum of sexuality existing in all the world's culture. He was years ahead of his time. He was targeted by early fascists and later by the Nazis for being Jewish and gay. He was exiled in France, where he died. He said, "Soon the day will come when science will win victory over error, justice a victory over injustice, and human love a victory over human hatred and ignorance." Please honor him. Say his name. Magnus Hirschfeld.
Magnus Hirschfeld.
How many have heard of Emma Goldman? Emma Goldman was a Russian-born anarchist, revolutionary, political activist, writer, and renowned lecturer, attracting crowds of thousands. Her writing and lectures spanned a wide range of issues, including prisons, atheism, freedom of speech, militarism, capitalism, marriage, free love, and homosexuality. On August 7th, 1915, she gave the first ever lecture on homosexuality in the United States. And she said, quote, "I regard it as a tragedy that people of a differing sexual orientation find themselves proscribed in a world that is so little understanding for homosexuals and that displays such gross indifference of sexual gradations and variations and the great significance they have for living. It is completely foreign to me to wish to regard such people as less valuable, less moral, or incapable of noble sentiments and behavior." A number of gays and lesbians came to thank her, and Goldman later wrote that these people, quote, "were often a finer grain than those who had cast them out." Speak her name.
Emma Goldman.
I can't remember. Emma Goldman. All right. Now Henry Gerber, 1924, inspired by Hirschfeld, so we all stand on the shoulders of those who come before us. He started the Society for Human Rights, the first gay rights group in the United States. Gerber was arrested and put on trial 3 times. The charges against him were eventually dismissed, but his defense cost him his life savings. And he was very bitter that the wealthy gays and lesbians did nothing to help him. He said, "We were up against a solid wall of ignorance, hypocrisy, meanness, and corruption. And the wall had won." Now compare his experience to mine, and you can see why I admire him so. Speak his name. Henry Gerber.
Henry Gerber.
Now Radcliffe Hall, 1928, published The Well of Loneliness, a novel based on her life. It became the most famous lesbian novel. It was, of course, banned, which only made everybody want to read it. And in that book she wrote, "You're neither unnatural, nor abominable, nor mad. You're as much a part of what people call nature as anyone else, only you're unexplained as yet." One passage read, "But someday that will come, and meanwhile don't shrink from yourself, but face yourself calmly and bravely. Have courage, do the best you can with your burden, but above all, be honorable." Speak her name, Radcliffe Hall.
Radcliffe Hall.
Okay, how many have heard of Einar Wegener? Lily O. Oh, you should. In 1930, she had the absolute world's first sex reassignment surgery, supervised by Hirschfeld. The complications from the 4th surgery killed her. But she said, "I think Lily's thoughts. I dream her dreams. She was always there." And then later she said, "This is not my body, Professor. Please take it away." They made a movie about her, The Danish Girl, starring Eddie Redmayne and co-starring Alicia Vikander, and she won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. A phenomenal film. Speak her name, Lily Elbe.
Lily Elbe.
All right, you've probably heard of Alan Turing.
Yeah.
All right. He created the world's first computer. He began computers. He broke the Enigma code. It is estimated that he saved between 14 and 20 million lives. He secretly, because what he had done was so top secret, received the Order of the British Empire, the highest award anyone can receive in Great Britain. But in 1952, he was investigated, arrested, fired, and forced to undergo chemical castration. And that destroyed, rewired his brain. He ended up killing himself by eating a poisoned apple. And many believe that the Apple logo, with the bite out of it, is high praise to him. They've asked him, they said, oh no, but most of us believe, oh yes, they were honoring the founder of modern computing. He said, sometimes it is the people who no one imagines anything of, who do the things that no one can imagine. Speak his name, Alan Turing. Alfred Kinsey, 1948, published The Sexual Behavior in the Human Female, and then in 1953, Sexual Behavior in the Human Female. And he interviewed all these people, asked them about their sexual practices, and he wrote, of the people he interviewed, 10% of their behavior in the last year had been exclusively homosexual. And that went worldwide and said, aha, it's 1 in every 10. Now you need to know that he was aghast at this. He just said, oh hell no, 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 no. That's not what I said. But the gay community, we've published many books, 1 teacher in 10 and whatever it is. But he said it's far more complicated than that. He said males do not represent 2 discrete populations, heterosexual and homosexual. The world is not to be divided into sheep and goats. Not all things are black, nor all things white. It is a fundamental of taxonomy that nature rarely deals with discrete categories. Only the human mind invents categories and tries to force facts into separated pigeonholes. The living world is a continuum in each and every of its aspects. The sooner we learn this concerning human sexual behavior, the sooner we shall reach a sound understanding of the realities of sex. A man way ahead of his time, for whom we owe a lot. Please speak his name. I can't remember names today. Alfred Kinsey. The Kinsey Report, absolutely. Now, almost immediately afterwards, Edward Sagarin, he read the Kinsey Report, there he is, and felt there needed to be a book written by an actual gay man, not a scientist studying gay men. In 1951, he published The Homosexual in America under the pen name Donald Webster Corey. And he wrote, tolerance is the ugliest word in our language, Sagarin wrote. I can't see why anyone should be struggling to be tolerated. If people are not good, they should not be tolerated. And if they are good, they should be accepted. Please speak his name, Edward Sagarin. Homosexual in America. All right, one of my favorites. Harry Hay, how many have heard of him? Oh, he's cool. He's been described as the founder of the modern gay movement and the founder of gay liberation. In 1950, along with others, he created the Mattachine Society, the most influential and enduring gay rights group in the United States. He defended one of their members in court. They got together and defended him. This made national headlines, and they got him exonerated, and now the Mattachine Society was very famous indeed. In 1953, they had their first Constitutional Convention held at the First Universalist Church in Los Angeles. About 150 delegates gathered for what was the first open gathering of gay men in the United States. And then Harry and the other founders were kicked out for being too radical. And this is, in every gay rights movement, sort of the polemic, how far are we willing to go? Most of the members found Harry Hay to be too radical for them, and so they shoved him aside. Not to be stopped. In 1969, he started the Gay Liberation Front. In 1970, he co-founded the Radical Fairies. a countercultural movement blending queer consciousness and secular spirituality, neo-paganism, anarchism, and environmentalism. I gotta tell you, I've met them. They know how to have fun. They just are just happy people. And he would, periodically he would be driven through the gay pride and everyone stood up. And he's just a beloved man. He said, I knew that I was gay in every bone of my body, so I did the only thing I could do. I started the movement. And he said, give yourself permission to enjoy being gay. You do have the right to give yourself permission. You have been told you may not. Give yourself permission to be free. Harry Hay. Say his name.
Harry.
I love this one too. There's a man named George William Jorgensen who just said, I'm not a man. And she went to her parents and said, I'm sorry, I'm not a man. And with her parents' blessing, she flew to Denmark and had her sexual reassignment surgery. And she wrote back, she's an ex, adds juice to it. He was an ex-GI, which added spice to the story. She wrote in a letter to her parents afterwards, nature made a mistake which I have corrected, and I am your daughter. Somehow the letter was leaked to the press. And when she arrived back in the United States, I have to say she was a quiet, unassuming woman who wanted to live in obscurity and privacy. She gets off the plane, the door opens, she gets on the plane, and there are 300 reporters. Click, 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 everything's like this, and she just went, oh my God. And it's sort of, well, when life makes you lemons. And she said, fine, I'll take what is. And as a result, she appeared on television, radio talk shows, was a guest of honor at many charity fundraisers. She charmed everybody. The world fell in love with this. Everywhere she went, they all said, she's charming. And you used to be a GI? And she said, yes, I did. And she wrote, in 1968, she published her autobiography, Christine Jorgensen, a personal autobiography. And she had just 2 quotes. I found the oldest gift of heaven, to be myself. And she said, I don't need anyone's opinion. I've got my own. Please speak her name, Christine Jorgensen. All right, I love this woman. Dr. Evelyn Hooker, 1953, she had a lot of gay friends. They took her out for coffee and said, now listen, Evelyn, you know we're normal, you know we aren't sick, even though the American Psychological Association says we are. Please, prove it. So she did. And she took every psychological test, including, for example, the Rorschach test. She recruited 30 gay men, 30 random straight men, gave them all the exact same tests, and then had, mixed everything up, handed them to her colleagues and said, can you identify the homosexuals? And they all said, oh, piece of cake. No, they couldn't. They could not identify the gays in this group. But they had to sort of give an evaluation of each one of them, and every one of them rated the gays as higher functioning. Which is no surprise, because these are the gays who had gone through the juggernaut of coming out of the closet, plumbing themselves to their core, finding a courage they never knew they had, and then emerging the other side as truly themselves. Such a person is going to be higher functioning. Well, she went and delivered that to the American Psychological Association. And she said, we say that this is an illness. There is no data. In fact, the data says quite the opposite. Huge day. And she gave her address to them, and she closed her address, reading from a letter she had received from a gay man, thanking her for her work and saying, quote, I think you did it because you knew what love was. And when you saw it, and you knew that gay love was like all other love. Speaker name, Dr. Evelyn Hooker. All right, how many for Phyllis Lyon and Del Martin? Oh, beloved in the LGBT community. Remember Harry Hay started the Mattachine Society? They started, a San Francisco couple, in 1955, they started the Daughters of Bilitis. I've tried to understand the origin of that name, something to do with Greek mythology, I don't know. Anyways, a woman who attended one of their meetings wrote, I called up, and when I arrived in San Francisco, and they invited me to a meeting which was being held the following night, and that next night I was in a room with 12 other lesbians for the first time in my life, and oh, what a thrill it was, she recalled. It was a business meeting where they were planning the publication of their magazine, The Ladder. I just sat there and reveled in their company. These were nice women. They published The Ladder, the first nationally distributed lesbian periodical in the United States. It provided isolated women with a vital connection to a broader community and shared information on legal rights and literature. Rather than just a social group, the Daughters of Bilitis aimed to educate the public and depathologize homosexuality. They encouraged and participated in sociological and psychological studies to prove that lesbians were well-adjusted, normal members of society. Over the next 15 years, the organization expanded, opening chapters in major cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and other cities throughout the world. In 2004, they became the first same-sex couple legally married in San Francisco, presided over by Mayor Gavin Newsom. 2 months later, on August 27th, Del Martin passed away, finally married, survived by her wife of 10 weeks or 55 years, depending on how you count it. Please speak the name of these two beloved women, Phyllis Lynn and Del Martin.
Phyllis Lyon and Del Martin.
I think it's Lyon. I think I misspelled that in my notes. Yep. Anyways, Frank Kameny. I love this guy too. I have to say, I had to go back and create this LGBT studies course, so I had to go back and study all the things that I had been denied, and after each one I just went, oh, another hero! Frank Kameny was an astronomer. In 1957, he was fired from his job for being gay. I decided that my dismissal amounted to a declaration of war against me. I am right and they are wrong, and if they won't change, I will have to make them. So he sued and kept appealing all the way to the Supreme Court, but he lost. That's okay. In 1961, he founded the Mattachine Society of Washington, D.C. Nothing to do with the other Mattachine Society. It's far more radical, and just for fun, he put J. Edgar Hoover on their mailing list because they knew about J. Edgar Hoover. Well, J. Edgar Hoover was horrified. I mean, like, oh my God, how did I? And he sent his agents, go tell them to get me off their mailing list. And Kameny just said, sure, you stop all the harassment and we'll take you off our mailing list. And that's what happened. And emboldened by that, he wrote a brochure that was widely distributed to all LGBT groups, government employees, and military service members how to handle a federal investigation. It was a numbered list that reminded the readers of their constitutional right. Item 9, insist that you be treated with the full respect and dignity due all American citizens in every status by all their public servants and at all levels at all times. If you are not so treated, walk out and do not return until you have received in writing an apology for improper treatment and assurances of future proper behavior. In July 1968, he gave a speech that goes down in LGBT history. He said, "It is time to open the closet door and let in the fresh air and the sunshine. It is time to hold up your heads and look the world squarely in the eyes as the homosexuals that you are, confident of your equality. It is time to live your homosexuality fully, socially, psychologically, emotionally, and in every other way. Gay is good. It is." And that went down in history. And we put that all over our signs and carried it in every gay pride. Gay is good. Thank you, Frank Kameny. Please speak his name.
Frank Kameny.
How many have heard of Jose Sarria? Oh, you're going to love this one. I'm going to go hopelessly over, and I don't care. Okay. He was a San Francisco cocktail waiter, performed in drag at the Black Cat, and each performance was different. He would change the lyrics to comment on the news or tease a person in the crowd. But performances always ended the same way. Saria would ask everyone to stand, grab the hands of the people closest to them, and join in singing his version of God Save the Queen. God save us, Nelly Queens. I can't even sing it. God save us, Nelly Queens. God save us, Queens. From every mountainside, long may we live or die. God save us, Nelly Queens. God save us, Queens. In 1961, he became the first LGBTQ person to run for public office as San Francisco supervisor. He lost, but he was the first. All right. Say his name, Jose Saria. Randy Wicker. This is a man with chutzpah. He began his activism in college. In early 1962, frustrated by the Mattachines' take-it-slow approach, Wicker formed his own group, the Homosexual League of New York. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? The Homosexual League of New York. He was the president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and the only member. But the press said, oh my God, so he was now being interviewed everywhere. Well, as the president of the Homosexual League of New York, and he was the only member. I just love this guy. Anyways, he became the most visible gay man in the city. In 1962, he had the first gay rights demonstration before the New York Draft Board. Evidently, if you were kicked out because you were gay, they released that information to employers. And he said, stop it. And they had a demonstration. And he wasn't successful, but it was the first time people stood up. Just an amazing man, by himself. Not like me with, people shoving me out and supporting me and applauding me. By himself. He said, perceptions of homosexuals outraged me. Legally, we were criminals. Psychiatrists called us mentally ill. Religious folks considered us moral degenerates. The homosexuals I knew were just well-adjusted, looked and acted normally, held jobs, and were generally indistinguishable from others. Say his name. Randy Wicker.
Randy Wicker.
How many have heard of Bayard Rustin? Oh, one of my heroes. Well, they're all my heroes. In 1963, he was the chief strategist for the African American rights movement. He became the chief advisor to Martin Luther King. He gave Martin Luther King his education in nonviolence. Bayard said to Martin, he said, Martin, you're going to have to lose the gun. No more guns. That's the power that this man had. But then he was outed, and Martin Luther King kicked him out of the organization. In 1963, they were planning the March on Washington. And all the advisors were there sitting around the table, and they knew it was going to be big. And they turned to Martin Luther King and they said, there's only one man who could possibly pull this off. And they brought Bayard Rustin back. And he organized the March on Washington. He said, when an individual is protesting society's refusal to acknowledge his dignity as a human being, his very act of protest confers dignity on him. He said, we need to be in every bay and community a group of angelic troublemakers. Love this guy. There's a movie about him called Brother Outsider. Lovely movie. Please speak his name. Bayard Rustin.
Bayard Rustin.
All right. This is going to piss you off. Ready? Marsha P. Johnson. One of many. I'm just picking her. There were several people who started the Stonewall movement, so I chose her somewhat randomly. She was a black, self-identified transvestite, a term she used during her lifetime, and drag queen, often referred to as the Saint of Christopher Street, and she started wearing women's clothing at the age of 5. In June 28, 1969, the police raided the Stonewall Bar again, and the transvestite drag queens finally had enough. Urban myth suggests that she threw the first brick or the shot glass to spark the riots. We'll never know. She is credited as the catalyst for the modern LGBTQ plus movement, not because they were the first. By the way, there was a demonstration at Cooper's Donuts riots in Los Angeles in 1959 and Compton's cafeteria riot in San Francisco in 1966. But they were the first to start a sustained, organized mass mobilization to activism. This is when it all began. One of the members who was there in the bar with her said, "We had discovered a power that we weren't even aware that we had. All of a sudden, I had brothers and sisters, which I didn't have before." She helped to found STAR, the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, which provided food and shelter for transgender youth through the STAR House, a 4-bedroom rental home in the East Village. She began regularly spending time with AIDS patients in hospitals, praying for them and lighting candles for them. She helped to organize the first AIDS walk in Los Angeles. She said, "How many years has it taken people to realize that we are all brothers and sisters and human beings in the human race?" Another quote, "I'd like to see the gay revolution get started. If a transvestite doesn't say, 'I'm gay and I'm proud and I'm a transvestite,' then no one else is going to hop up there and say, 'I'm gay and I'm proud and I'm a transvestite' for them, so I better do it." Ready to get angry? In 2015, they created a movie called Stonewall. Do you want to see the star? Jeremy Irvine. They stratified everything. They found a really handsome white guy and said he started Stonewall, instead of honoring women like her. As you might imagine, the gay community panned it, and none of us would even go to see it. We thought, what an insult. Marsha P. Johnson, say her name.
Marsha P. Johnson.
Harvey Milk, I suppose you've heard of him. He was known as the mayor of Castro Street. He started boycotts for any of the local establishments that weren't gay-friendly. Initially, they were being treated very poorly, and once the boycott started, they changed their attitudes. He ran for supervisor in 1973, lost, 1975 lost, but with the support of the Teamsters, he won in 1977. Now, by the way, he was not the first openly gay elected office. That was Kathy Kozajenko in Ann Arbor City Council in 1974. However, he tackled many issues, including downtown development, rental control, taxes, and, made me laugh, pooper scooper law. But one of his proudest achievements was passing a long overdue gay rights ordinance banning discrimination in housing, public accommodations, and the workplace. Now, by the way, he spoke at a gay pride event. That is a very famous photo. Before he stepped on the stage, one of his aides handed him a note that had been passed along, and it said, "If you go up there, we will shoot you." And the guy said, "You can't go up there." He said, "It's gay pride, of course I'm going up there." And he did, and that's the moment up there in defiance of the death threat. In 1978, there was the Briggs Initiative that banned homosexual teachers and any school employee that supported gay rights, they would all be fired. This was a statewide initiative, and Anita Bryant from Florida became a national spokesperson for it, SPIT. And anyways, it did not look good, but he gave the good fight, and he went throughout the state debating Briggs. And just this guy got up, Harvey Milk, and debated him on this issue. And then the election night came, and to everyone's amazement, they won. And it made national headlines. And then 3 weeks later, he was murdered along with Mayor Moscone. The fellow who shot him got off for manslaughter. It's the famous Twinkie defense. He'd had some Twinkies and so became temporarily insane. He wrote, Harvey Milk, "If a bullet should enter my brain," he said, "let that bullet destroy every closet door." They made a movie about Milk starring Sean Penn, and he won an Oscar for his role. And you need to know that those people who knew Harvey Milk well, they watched the movie almost in horror, because they said, we thought it was Harvey. We couldn't believe it. Sean Penn killed it. Gene O'Leary, almost done. Don't yell at me yet. All right. Former Catholic nun, founded the Lesbian Feminist Liberation and helped co-found National Coming Out Day. She also organized the first meeting of gay leaders at the White House in 1977. And by the way, Frank Kameny was also invited. Our invisibility is the essence of our oppression. And until we eliminate that invisibility, people are going to be able to perpetuate the lies and myths about gay people. Next, quickly. How many have heard of Larry Kramer?
Yep.
Oh, you should have. He was an author and screenwriter in New York City, and in 1981, AIDS hit. And by the way, that was the year I graduated from college. I had gay friends. I was still closeted even to myself. I thought I was so progressive because they were my friends, even though I'm straight. Most of them were rewarded for their courage with their deaths. And I was rewarded for my cowardice with my life. Life is full of little ironies. Anyways, in 1981, it hit, and he founded the Gay Men's Health Crisis in Los Angeles. And so he became the spokesperson. In his early interviews, he's wearing a tweed coat, and he says, well, yes, we're very concerned, very stated, very understated. But by October 1983, 2 years later, people were dying everywhere, and the government was anything but responsive. The Reagan administration mocked gay people and said, let them die. And so the Gay Men's Health Crisis that he founded was the leading health provider for AIDS patients in New York City. Eventually, rage consumed him, and government apathy, and the denial of the gay community. And at one meeting, he turned to them and he said, at the rate we are going, and this time he is shrieking at them. I showed my students the video of it. He said, you could all be dead in less than 5 years. 2/3 of this room could be dead in less than 5 years. And so he founded ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. The watchword was, silence equals death. Every one of us here is capable of doing something strong. We have to go after the Food and Drug Administration fast. This means coordinated protests, pickets, arrests. Are you ashamed of being arrested? Now at the time, I was horrified by ACT UP, as were many of us in the LGBT community, because they engaged in regular civil disobedience, pissing everyone off. Today, everyone who survived AIDS now credits ACT UP with saving their lives. There's a play about him called, he wrote this play, an autobiographical play turned into a movie called A Normal Heart. Please see it. Say his name, Larry Kramer.
Larry Kramer.
Almost done. Next, C. Everett Koop. This is a man who was chosen by Reagan because of his conservative beliefs. For the first 4 years of an office, Koop, the nation's top health officer, was prevented from addressing this health crisis. In 1988, he said, screw it. And he took unprecedented action in mailing AIDS information to every U.S. household. In other words, he did his job. He advocated sex education in schools, including ladder instruction regarding the proper use of condoms to combat the spread of AIDS. Quote, my position on AIDS was dictated by scientific integrity and Christian compassion. And later he said, many people, especially our youth, are not receiving information that is vital to their future and health and well-being because of our reticence in dealing with the subject of sex, sexual practices, and homosexuality. This silence must end. We can no longer afford to sidestep frank, open discussions about sexual practices, homosexual and heterosexual. Education about AIDS should start at an early age so that children can grow up knowing the behaviors to avoid to protect themselves from exposure to the AIDS virus. And many years later, he reminisced and said, we had to embarrass the administration into bringing the resources that were necessary to deal with this epidemic forcefully. Speak his name, C. Everett Koop. All right, last two. Another controversy in the gay community. You know, we always wondered how radical should we be. With the issue of gay marriage, there was a huge divide. Same divide, but that, by the way, existed in the suffrage movement, which eventually shoved Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton to the side and said, no more Ms. Nice Gals, we're going to engage in civil disobedience. Well, the argument in the gay community was we can't push too fast. We need to go state by state until we get just a preponderance of states and then take it to the Supreme Court. Because if we take it now and we lose, we're done for at least a generation. We can't take that risk. These two people defied the gay community and they took it to the Supreme Court. The first is Edith Windsor. And she took it to the Supreme Court in 2003, struck down the federal ban on recognizing same-sex marriages. She said, marriage is not a magic word. Marriage is a magic word, and it is magic throughout the world. It has to do with our dignity as human beings to be who we are openly. And then 2 years later, Jim Obergefell took it to the Supreme Court and won and legalized same-sex marriage nationwide. Quote, what gives me hope is speaking in front of young people like you and people younger than you, he said. They don't see differences in people the way old people like me do, and that's what gives me hope. That's what I will keep fighting for. And I have to say, we are winning. This is a sort of a gross comment, but we are winning the issue one coffin at a time. I have to say, I was an openly gay educator, and my kids didn't give a damn. I mean, there's a very famous anecdote. The assistant principal was walking through the lunchroom, and he overheard some of the students talking. And one of my students said to the other, did you hear Mr. Ellison's gay? And the other kid said, man, that's nothing. Did you hear? He doesn't have a TV. That's weird. So why do we celebrate gay pride? Because like Don Quixote, we have an impossible dream, a noble dream. The kind of dream that makes life worth living. That one day every young boy and girl will hear a message that I want to play to you right now. And this came out of place. Oh yeah, wrong age. I wanted to share with you a message I received this morning. Just from someone I've never met. She wrote, I wanted to wish you well with your Open Circle talk tomorrow. Lori and I have other plans and won't be there, so we will miss it. It's important for our stories to be told and retold, and I am grateful that you will be doing so. Her name is Stephanie Byers. 2018 GLSEN, Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, National Educator of the Year, the first transgender legislature in the Kansas legislature, and the first transgender Native American elected to state legislature in the United States, and she is a Lakeside resident. Wow. Speak her name, a local hero, Stephanie Byers. Okay, let's see if this works, even though I'm hopelessly. In 1983, a lesbian friend of folk singer Fred Small asked him to write a song for her son. And he wrote, Everything Possible. Let's see if it works. Hello?
No. No. Put it on your...
I have told you the story. We have cleared off the table. The leftovers saved, washed the dishes, and put them away. I have told you a story and tucked you in tight at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sail to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, well, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. You can be anybody that you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live
Some boys are quiet and kind.
Some race on ahead, some follow behind.
Some grow in their own space and time.
Some women love women, and some
Men love men.
some raise children, and some never do.
And dream of a day never reaching the end of everything possible.
Repeat after me. You can be anybody that you want to be. You can love whomever you will. The dream of gay pride is that one day every child will hear those words. We have an impossible dream, a noble dream, the kind of dream that makes life worth living, that one day every young boy and girl will hear that message. And as long as there are people of courage, like the ones I've just shared with you, every day we'll get a little bit closer to that dream. And so once a year we honor such people and rededicate ourselves to being courageous too. As long as 83% of LGBTQ people continue to live in the closet, as long as gay teens commit suicide at a rate 4 times the national average, as long as 12 countries continue to prescribe the death penalty for being gay, as long as the President of the United States and the Republican Party continue to try to suppress our history, to suppress our very selves, we will have Gay Pride Day and month. Thank you so much for celebrating Gay Pride with me today.